Hi there, welcome to the Chauvin's Nest. My name is Sandra, and I'm so glad you're here. My first project is working with this wood round that I picked up at Michael's for $1.49. You can get these also at the Dollar Tree. My Dollar Tree just didn't seem to have any when I was looking for them. What I did was use some painter's tape to mask off the sections that I wanted to paint. I'm going to do this top portion white, and then I'm going to do the bottom portion black, leaving some of the wood showing in the middle. I'm also painting this Jenga block. Now, this is a true Jenga block. It was a game that I found at the thrift store for $4.99. So if you're ever thrifting, don't forget to go look in the game section to see if you can find some of these blocks. I'm just going to do the sides for now until I figure out where I want to glue it on. The center portion of the wood sign is still raw wood, and I want to use my oil-based paint pens to write the word welcome. But I know that whenever I've done raw wood, the pen bleeds into the grain of the wood and then you get more of a fuzzy outline. So I decided to take some Mod Podge and just give this a really light coat to seal in the wood. My first attempt at writing the words, you can see I have my pens all out, didn't work very well. So what I'm doing here is using some of this mushroom paint that I have. I love this color. And I added a couple more pieces of tape, and I'm just going to add an additional stripe to cover up the lettering, but I still have a little piece of the raw wood showing here. I started out by gluing the Jenga block at the bottom of the wood round, thinking that it would stand up properly, but the wood round was still a little too heavy and this Jenga block wasn't enough of a surface on the table. So I ended up pulling that off and then just gluing the piece of Jenga block to the back instead. I'm using my favorite paint pens, which are the Craft Smart oil-based paint pens. You can find them at Michael's and they're also available on Amazon. And I like to start at the last letter of the word and then work my way backwards. I was kind of hoping that this would be a little off center, so my letters would be more to the right of the sign, but I made them a little too big, but I still think it turned out pretty cute. Now I'm just going over it to thicken them up a little bit, and then I'll also add a little bit of extra embellishment with some thicker lines on the downslope and also some shadowing. For my little shadow lines, I always go down the left side of the letter, and I'm just using a little Sharpie fine point marker to give me those tiny little lines. So I am not the best bow maker. I struggle with trying to work with wider ribbons like this. So I just decided to make three little loops just by hot gluing the ribbon on top of each other. I'm going to make three different sizes, and then I'm going to tie a shoestring bow with the another piece of ribbon just to give it a little bit more oomph. This sign gave me a little bit of trouble, but I'm really happy with how it finally turned out. And I hope you like it too. This next sign is cute as well, but it's been waiting for a makeover for a while. I just poured some 100% acetone on it, and I'm going to use a paper towel to remove all of the ink. At first, I thought I would leave the metal sign on, but I decided to just use a butter knife and pop it off. It came off really easily. I've really been loving the look of layering paper and fabrics and different things on top of signs. So I'm going to use this scrapbook paper and cut it out to the size I need for the palette sign. I've also been really liking just using a glue stick for paper. It really omits all of the bubbles and the wrinkles that you get with Mod Podge because Mod Podge is such a wet glue. And a glue stick, well, it's a stick. It's nice and dry, but it's still really sticky. So this has been working out really well for me. Using my craft knife, I've just gone to the back and I'm going to just very gently cut out and trim all the paper that I don't need. I want the paper to look like it's been on this palette sign for a while, so I'm taking some rough grit sandpaper. I think this is an 80 grit, and I'm just going to rub it along the edges and in between the palette pieces, along the corners, just to make it look like it's been around on this palette for a really long time. Now I'm going to paint the galvanized metal with my favorite color, mushroom, which is sort of a gray beige kind of color. And I'm going to give this 2 coats and allow it to dry completely before I move on to the next step. I love printing designs on tissue paper to use in my crafts, so I'm going to cut out this laurel wreath with the bumblebee in the center. Using some Mod Podge, I'm going to attach a very thin layer onto the sign. You don't want to have too much Mod Podge on there because then you'll get more bubbles and more wrinkles. So a little bit on the drier side. Then I like to use my paintbrush to pick up my design, and then it helps me to place it right in the center. I work my way out from the center, getting all of the wrinkles and the bubbles out, making sure that my brush has a little bit of Mod Podge on it so I don't tear the paper. I'm going to take a little bit of black and just go around the edges of the sign, just pulling my brush sort of into the center like you see me kind of flicking it, just to get a little bit of some distressing and make it look kind of feathery. I'm going to be applying the hot glue for the sign onto the wood instead of on the metal because hot glue dries super quick on galvanized metal. So on the craft wood, I still have a little bit of working time. To create a hanger for this sign, I'm just using a piece of black and off-white ticking stripe ribbon that I picked up at Michael's. I was really excited to find these cutting boards at my Dollar Tree this year, so I picked a few of them up. I'm just going to give this one coat of my DIY white chalk paint. I added one of my tissue paper designs onto this with Mod Podge, and now I'm just going to go around the edge with the black brush and a little bit of paint, give it some distressing, just kind of rubbing it along the sides and then pulling it in a little bit on the inside. Then I'm also going to go across the white of the board to give it a little bit more distressing and more dimension. I added some twine along the top, just crisscrossing it over and hot gluing it in the back, and then I added a cute little shoestring bow made out of twine on the front. I also glued in a few little sprigs of greenery, and I think this cutting board turned out really cute. I love working with wood, so whenever I see these wood planks from the Dollar Tree, I always stock up on a few of them. I'm going to glue 2 of these square ones together, and then I'm going to use the burnt umber acrylic paint, also from the Dollar Tree, watered down a little bit to give it a stain. I'm dipping my brush in some water and then into the burnt umber to get more of a wash than a solid paint. And I'm going to do this a couple of times until I achieve the color that I want. I found these silicone stamps at a dollar store near my home, so I decided to cut out a piece of drop cloth fabric and do some stamping with them. I've got this acrylic block left over from my scrapbooking days, so I've just attached the stamp to it. Then I'm going to take the ink pad and just blot it until it is a really nice solid color. That little owl that you see is something that I'm going to be gluing onto the center of the design. So I'm going to make these corner frames go all around it. I'll repeat this process for all 4 corners. I'm going to fray the drop cloth a little bit on both of the longer sides because those are the sides that you'll actually see once the project is complete. I'm going to center the piece of drop cloth right in the middle of the two wood pieces, and then I'll just use some hot glue to secure it on the back. I'm going to use a tiny bit of hot glue on the edges of the owl to make sure that nothing seeps through onto the front, and I'll just secure him in place. I did use the ink pad on him a little bit just to give him some darker color. To make the sign look more finished and a little bit more high end, I'm going to use this jute rope and glue it all around the edge of the sign. I'm also going to add a jute hanger just by gluing it onto the back of the sign and creating a sweet little loop. I really love this sign. I added a little bit of greenery into the pockets. I didn't glue them in, so you'd be able to just change it out for the seasons. For this last sign, I'm using one of these Dollar Tree Gothic windows, and I'm going to use the back side of it, which is the flat side, rather than the one that has all the frames on the front. I got some of this vintage paper, which is just something that I printed off from pixabay.com, and I'm going to just decide where I want the picture to be. I think I want that sewing machine to kind of be front and center, so I'm going to make sure that I cut the paper out so that is showing really well. Again, I'm just using a glue stick and just applying it really well to make sure that the whole sign is completely covered. Making sure I have it centered correctly, I'm going to just press it down, and then I'm going to use some of my rough grit sandpaper again just to sand off the edges that are hanging over and just again give it a little bit more of a rustic look. I'm going to use the same stain mixture, the burnt umber, acrylic paint, and some water. I'm going to go around the bottom and the sides, and then I'm also going to go up the sides of the sign. And if I get a little bit of the burnt umber on the paper, that's okay. I think it's going to look even better that way with a little bit of some age and distressing on the paper too. I'm going to add some solo wood flowers to the bottom of this sign, and I love using lamb's ear in conjunction with that. I just think the two colors together, everything is soft and muted, and it looks really beautifully vintage. Solo wood flowers come in a variety of shapes and sizes and colors. These are the minis. I love using the small ones for little signs like this. The ones that are pure white are called skinless, and the ones that have a little bit of brown on them are called skinned. And that is just a way to figure out how to look for them when you're on their website. I'll have that link down in my description box if you're interested in taking a look. To add a little bit more of an accent towards the top of the sign, just to balance it out a little bit, I'm going to add some of this jute twine, wrap it around a few times, and then add another little shoestring bow. And this is probably my favorite out of all of the signs that I've created for you today. I hope you enjoyed these 5 farmhouse mini sign DIYs. If you did, I'd love for you to hit that like button. That really helps me get noticed more on YouTube. If you're new to my channel, I would love for you to stick around by hitting that subscribe button. The black arrow will show you exactly where to click. To my current subscribers and viewers, I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for supporting my channel and helping me grow. See you in the next one.